Happy Friday, Queens. Happy Friday. This is the Friday before the 4th. I hope you all have a phenomenal weekend. Hopefully some of y'all got some time off from work so that have a long weekend. So hopefully you're off Monday and Tuesday. I'm not. I'm going in Monday. I should have took it off, but I didn't. Anyway, okay. So the last video I talked about sex and seduction, and I'm probably going to circle back to talk more about that topic, but today I want to talk about how you will never trust him. I talked about sex and seduction last time, and I talked about how the objective for that man is to emotionally connect with you, and how he does that is, sometimes they create trauma bonds. Sometimes it isn't a trauma bond, but they open up the lines of communication. They might be a bit vulnerable with you. They might share their hopes, their dreams, their failures with you in hopes, and the goal is to connect emotionally. So the first way they do that is, like I said, through the lines of communication, and then through the art of sex and seduction. Men who have women on the side will give you some of the best sex there is. And again, I'm not here to promote it. I'm just telling you my testimony, as well as other people who I've interviewed, people who have confided in me. It's some of the best sex, okay? Why? Because they got a lot of experience. They've done a lot of it. They have learned, and they study how to make a woman feel good, in the area of pleasure. So with that being said, let me fast forward to what I want to talk about today, which is you'll never be able to trust him. So on to my experience with this. It got to a point where I literally started to feel like I was a little crazy. and if you're in this situation, you'll know what I mean. Like, you get to a point where you're always looking, you're always checking. Every move they make becomes suspicious. You know what I mean? And so it reminds me of when the old people used to tell us, how you get them is how you'll keep them. And, when you go into these situations, sneaking and being deceiving, and you might think, well, I'm not deceiving anybody. Well, you are aiding and abetting, right? You are basically contributing to his lies. So you're part of the deceit, right? That's the ugly truth. That's the ugly truth about this dynamic. No, you don't have any responsibility to that woman, but anytime you're being deceitful, or you're dealing with a man who is deceiving another woman, you're a part of that deceit, right? So anytime you participate in deceiving someone else, after a while, after the cupcake phase wears off, reality sets in, right? And you're like, shit, who's texting him? Every time the alerts on his phones go off, your head is raised. Your antennas go up, like, what's going on? You know what I mean? Whether you express it to him or not, but in your mind, it's always a question mark. I remember every time we made plans, and it got to the point where he started canceling plans. And he always had a legitimate excuse that usually was about his family, his children specifically, or his mom, or whatever. It was, never what it was really about. But when every time there was something came up, in a regular situation, if I was dating, I probably wouldn't question it so much. But because I knew how he had to lie to deal with me, I questioned everything he said. Like, nothing he said, almost everything that came out of it got to the point, not initially, but eventually, it got to the point where I questioned everything that came out of his mouth. Okay. So if you're not at that point yet, because, different people will get on here and there'll be different places in the relationship. You still might be in the cupcake phase. Eventually, though, you'll get to the point where it's just like, I don't believe shit he's saying. And let me tell you, that is a horrible existence. That is a horrible existence, just to be with somebody, just to have somebody, and you don't really have them. That's the thing. You don't really have them. I'll never forget. He kept insisting that he was leaving his significant other because, he claimed that when he got with me, they weren't together. I told that story. So look in part 1 and part 2 for my story if you didn't hear how I got into the dynamic. But, he insisted for months he was leaving. And let me just say that they're not leaving. I've said this in other videos, but they are not leaving. And if they do, okay, you will never trust them. That's why I'm making this video today. You will never trust them. I remember I was talking to my big cousin, who is like my big brother, and I kept saying, well, he insisted he's leaving and he doesn't want to leave his children. He wants to leave, but he wants to make sure that he does it in a fashion that is conducive for his kids. He want to make sure he does it the right way. And I'm supporting him on that. My cousin said, you want to know if this man is really leaving this woman? I said, yeah. Yeah. He said, do a test. I said, what do you mean? He said, tell him that something happened, like, some stalkerish person or somebody weird. Because he went home every night. This man went home every night. He said, say somebody has done something that caused you to be afraid and you can't be alone. Because he asked me, he said, does he go home every night? I said, every night. He goes home every night. Every day that he's here, he goes home. Even if it's, 3, 4, 5 in the morning, he's going home. And I said, but he just wants to do things the right way. He said, tell him you're scared and tell him you need him to stay. He said, if that man is truly leaving that woman, he will stay. He said, if he has no intentions on leaving her, that means he gonna take his ass home no matter what you feeling, because he got to keep his home intact. I said, okay. So I did it. I made up this elaborate story, and, I let him know I was really, really afraid. And babe, I really need you to stay. I really need you tonight. I really need you tonight. I'm terrified. I just need to know that I'm okay, and I need you to protect me. I need you to be here. He left. He left. And it was that night that I made the decision. I'm done. I'm done. Because, I came to understand that people can't waste time that you don't give them. People cannot waste time that you don't give them. And I was so upset with him. And then I had to really, really get honest with myself and look at myself for the ugly, right? I had to accept the ugliness that I participated in. I kept feeling like he was lying to me. So if he's lying to me, why wouldn't it be logical and reasonable for me to understand that he's lying to her? Right? And so back to the you never trust him. It got to the point, like I said, I didn't trust one word that came out of his mouth. And sisters, that is not the way we need to be living. That is the kind of stuff that shortens our lifespan. You know what I mean? That kind of worrying, that kind of stress. Look, we are dying younger and younger. And I don't mean to take a morbid turn, but I'm serious. Like, you're already risking STI